From the National Weather Service in Raleigh, it's Nick Petro with your routine Thursday weekly briefing for Central North Carolina. And these episodes of freezing rain, one right after another, a trend seems to continue here. And basically, we've got a two-part event. Basically, part one being tonight into Friday morning, and then the bigger of the two of the events, Friday night through Saturday. And both of these will mainly affect the northern Piedmont of central North Carolina. So anyway, today's routine briefing, which again, like I mentioned earlier, is not quite routine, is a combination of the routine slides we would normally use and high impact briefing slides as well. But as I always like to do, I always like to start off with what is happening right now, so you can get a sense of what is headed our way. And the first thing I'll draw your attention to is a couple things, obviously. First, we've got some rain back to our west, crossing the mountains. Some of that rain is getting into the western Piedmont and the Triad areas. Fortunately, we do have temperatures, and the numbers you see here are current temperatures. We do have temperatures in the mid to upper 40s, even some lower 50s down near the South Carolina border. You'll notice as you head back, though, look at the western fringe of this precip shield. Look at that that sort of, salmon color represents where the freezing rain is occurring. This orange color represents sleet, and then, of course, blue represents where snow is occurring. So you can see on the very back edge, before the precip shuts down, it looks like there's a slim, thin, narrow band of freezing rain. And quite frankly, that's exactly what we're expecting to happen tomorrow morning. This will be a mostly rain event for us. But then right at the very end of the event, before things shut down, there could be a little bit of freezing rain that gets involved because, sure enough, what's happening? The cold air is, headed eastward. And remember what I always say, the mountains here tend to block the real quick eastward progression of this cold air. So what happens is the cold air has to build to our north, which it is. You can see the cold air readings in the 20s up in Pennsylvania, and then that cold air has to come down sort of the scenic route to get to us, okay? Again, if it wasn't for these mountains here, we'd have much different weather picture. So the cold air has to build to our north and then kind of take the scenic route down to us. And that's why a lot of times what happens when these weather systems blow through is that, a lot of times by the time the cold air gets here, the precip is already exiting. It's just, the cold air doesn't get here in time to while there's still precip falling. So anyway, that's going to be the case for tonight into tomorrow. But for the next event, and you can see the next event is gathering steam here across the southern plains in Texas, this basic weather system. As this weather system and its moisture heads off to the northeast for Friday night into Saturday, there's a good chance that that this cold air that I speak of building up to our north will be already here. Okay, and when I say here, I mean at least down to the Virginia border, or maybe into the northern Piedmont. All right, so that's a little bit of a look at the map with real data to kind of give you a sense of what we're expecting. As we look at the main points, this is a two-part freezing rain event, the second of which is going to be more substantial. And as always, the worst case weather is generally near the Virginia border, the northern Piedmont, north of 85, the northern I-95 corridor. And that's where there could be maybe some light freezing rain accumulations, particularly on Saturday, not so much tonight and tomorrow, but mainly on Saturday. And that could pose a risk for some slick spots on bridges and elevated roads. So in this graphic here just summarizes how we think late Friday night into Saturday is going to be worse than tonight into early Friday morning. So how do we think this is going to play out? Well, of course, these reflectivity and precip time simulations, this is specifically for event number one, which is basically tonight into Friday morning. And again, this is meant to give you a sense of timing, and these simulations are always subject to large errors. So please, use them with caution and allow us to have a little bit of error in them because they're just simulations. So anyway, but we do think, this evening, 7 p.m., even 10 p.m., it's going to be all rain in North Carolina, central North Carolina. The wintry precip is still going to be up into Virginia. But then as we get into the overnight hours and that cold air slowly bleeds southward, it might looks like it might change over to some light freezing rain, particularly by 4 a.m. Tomorrow morning. Some light freezing rain, mainly north of 85, and then by 7 o'clock, it looks like the cold air is just too late getting here. So the rain and the precip batch is exiting. So that's why light freezing rain will be ending probably by 7 a.m. and the amounts won't be that much because the cold air is taking its good time to get here from the north, and by the time it does get here, it's too late. The rain is already gone. So how much are we expecting for by Friday morning? We're only expecting really what amounts to trace amounts up near the Virginia border. We're talking even well north of 85. So maybe Roxborough sees a light accumulation on tree branches. And up near the Virginia border, up near the lakes, Gaston, but generally speaking, these are low-end ice amounts, and impacts will be very limited. And if there are any, it'd be mainly elevated surfaces. Okay, so not a huge deal. But when we shift attention to event number 2, which will occur Friday night through Saturday, we're going to see things start off as light freezing rain overnight into Saturday morning because the cold air will be here by then. So that things get going right from the start north of 85 in terms of freezing rain, and that freezing rain will hold on through the daylight hours Saturday, and then as you can see during the daytime hours, that cold air just stays locked in across. And again, I'll pull out my highlighter here because it always bears repeating. Places along and north of 85. And the northern I-95 corridor, as we say, up near the Virginia border, basically this area here is climatologically the coldest part of central North Carolina. And, if it's marginal events, then those are the parts of central North Carolina that are most likely to see wintry weather, climatologically speaking. And this event will be no different. The northern I-95 corridor and the counties that straddle I-85 and northward. Okay, that's where we think the freezing rain will occur. And, it just might hang on to freezing rain all day on Saturday before finally the whole thing dries up and ends by Saturday evening. So places like Raleigh, Wilson, Fayetteville, right now it doesn't look to be any problem. Of course, we'll keep our eyes on things and if things change. But basically, once you get south of 85, it looks like you're probably wondering, well, what about 7 a.m.? That does show some of Wake County. And yeah, sure enough, there is hints that, maybe some of that initial freezing rain could slip a little bit south of 85, maybe getting into Wake County. But, when it's marginal like this and temperatures are just barely cold enough for freezing rain, the further you go south, the less likely it is to persist or have impacts. Okay, so this is the way we see it playing out with event number 2. Okay, so how much ice? Hang in there. Let me get my cursor on the screen here. Here we go with the ice accumulations. Now, we have increased these since the last slide set that we sent out yesterday. And now we're showing basically a tenth to 2/10 of an inch with slightly higher amounts, maybe up to a 1/4 inch near the Virginia border. Now, the 1/4 inch amount is usually the tipping point for where we start to see, more substantial impacts like tree branches breaking, power outages, more dangerous travel conditions. So, generally speaking, we could handle 1/10 of an inch of glaze without any major impacts. Obviously maybe some slick bridges and that sort of thing. But once we get up to 2/10 and a 1/4 inch, that's when things start to go downhill really quick. So anyway, we'll be keeping our eyes on these amounts and updating this as we head through the next, obviously 24, 48 hours. And if things trend one way or another, of course, we'll bring you updates as soon as we get them prepared. But for now, we're thinking a glaze of ice is possible on roads and especially bridges and overpasses. perhaps some scattered power outages because, again, especially those places that are getting closer to 2/10 or even a quarter inch of ice, which would be, again, north of I-85. Okay, so we're talking the area you see red and purple would be the places that most likely have the worst road conditions and the most likely place for power outages to occur. Okay, not to say that bridges might be slick, further south, like Greensboro and Durham and Lewisburg, Roanoke Rapids. There might be some slick spots, but that would be mainly on bridges and overpasses. Okay, so anyway, that's what we think is going to happen here with event number 2. So again, just to kind of summarize this 2-part event, part 1 will be tonight into Friday morning. Again, very, very minimal amounts, only trace amounts of ice expected now. Part 2 is the worst of the two. Again, tomorrow night, that is Friday night through the daytime Saturday, we've increased ice accumulations, and to what I just shared here a slide ago. Now, one of the questions that just popped in here, David, thanks for asking that. And David asks, are we going to be issuing winter storm or winter weather advisories? And yeah, these numbers do in fact, our criteria for winter weather advisory as it relates to freezing rain and ice is any amount of ice triggers a winter weather advisory. So, there's probably a good bet that, even places with, literally in the hundredths of an inch of ice could more than likely end up with a winter weather advisory. Okay, and the reason they're not out now is because typically our criteria for issuing winter weather advisories in terms of the time frame, usually we do winter weather advisories usually in that 24-hour or less period. So I'm not sure whether we're going to go out with a winter weather advisory for tonight. Here are tonight's ice amounts. I mean, we're talking such trace amounts. I'm not sure. We haven't decided yet about tonight, but certainly I would say by, for tomorrow night's event, either by later this afternoon or certainly the midnight shift tonight, we'll be issuing winter weather advisories. And remember, the criteria for winter storm warning is a quarter inch or more, and we're just not quite at a quarter inch yet. Okay, so if we think there's going to be if we think there's going to be a quarter inch of ice or more, that's when that's what triggers a winter storm warning. So anyway, keep that in mind. So yeah, winter weather advisories, David, will be coming out, but we just need to get a little bit closer in time. I'm sure either later this afternoon or our next midnight shift will be issuing that. All right. So anyway, because we normally on Thursday do a webinar or a briefing regardless of the weather, we normally like to look further out in time. I didn't want to leave that off, and I thought I would share a slide or two looking further out into the future. And I'm not going to focus anymore on tonight and Saturday's event, but I'm looking now beyond this weekend's weather. And unfortunately, I don't have a whole lot of good news to share for next week. Unfortunately, a series of low pressure systems will move across the region, bringing mostly rain. It looks like it's going to be warm enough for rain, but the problem is that it's bringing much more rain. So now next week we may shift from a winter concern to more of a flooding concern. So although I don't want to completely rule out a touch of freezing rain near the Virginia border on Tuesday, but it looks like that's going to be a mostly rain event right now. Things could change, and of course, if the colder air finds its way here, then it might be, it might. I don't want to completely rule out any kind of wintry weather next week, but right now the data suggests all rain events. But the problem is it's suggesting a lot of rain. So anyway, several inches of rainfall may add up over the next 7 days. As much as this slide here shows it. As much as 3 inches of rain could fall between now and the next 7 days, and eventually, when you get 3 inches of rain, that'll result in some rises on area rivers. I don't think this is a major, river flood event coming up, but at least minor flooding. So if you have interest along the Neuse or maybe the Tar, some of the other main stem rivers, this water eventually will find its way into that system, and probably more than likely give us at least minor river flooding as we head towards the middle or late part of next week. So unfortunately, the wet trend continues. It's like 2021's picking up where 2020 left off. So in terms of the wet weather, and I wish I had better news to share. But anyway, that's the way things are shaping up. So again, our next email briefing. Of course, I'll be emailing these slides out to everyone here as soon as we disconnect and I get this uploaded to YouTube. But I'll do another slide update by 4:30 this afternoon, and that'll be by email. And in terms of any webinars, I don't have any scheduled right now, but don't be surprised if I schedule one, say maybe tomorrow afternoon, to kind of go over what we think is going to happen on Saturday. So if and when I do that, you'll get notification via email. All right. And if you're already signed up to get this webinar, you'll automatically get invitation to any non-scheduled webinars that I do. All right. So that wraps up today's Thursday briefing.